Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Jonasz Rybicki. Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico has said that Ukraine will pay the price should Kiev halt the transit of Russian gas to Slovakia. Kiev consistently refuses to renew a transit deal with Moscow, which expires at the end of the year. As 2024 draws to a close, Slovakia has been working to preserve Russian gas supplies to Ukraine in 2025. Slovakia says alternative routes would sharply drive up costs and hit its own transit operations, causing it to lose some €500 million in fees, according to Fico. Meanwhile, he says the costs of the bloc could reach €120 billion in 2025-2026 from higher prices not only for the gas but also electricity generation from the fuel. He laid the blame on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Fico has also assured that his country would examine the possibility of taking what he called reciprocal measures against Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukraine has received its first shipment of liquefied natural gas from the United States. The war-torn country joins the broader European effort to reduce reliance on Russian fossil fuels. The country's largest private energy company, DTEK, received the shipment via the Mediterranean, with a vessel docking at a Greek LNG terminal on Friday. Europe obtains about 40% of its LNG imports from the US, but none have been directly purchased by Ukraine before. The shipment comes just days before the end of a 5-year deal allowing the transit of Russian pipeline gas through Ukraine, and just weeks ahead of Donald Trump taking over as US president. An investigation has revealed that the Russian tanker, which was detained by a Finnish border guard in the Baltic Sea earlier in the week, was kitted out with spy equipment. Special devices used to receive and transmit naval activity have since been seized. High-tech equipment was found on board the Russian tanker Eagle S. Authorities investigating the case have since dubbed it a spy ship. The ship was just one of several others purchased after Russia launched a full-scale war in Ukraine in order to circumvent sanctions and illicitly trade oil. Meanwhile, Finnish customs officials secured some 35,000 tons of unleaded gasoline, which the ship had refueled in Russian ports near St. Petersburg. The vessel was headed for Egypt at the time of the incident. Finnish Prime Minister Alexander Stubb has said that the vessel suspected of damaging underwater cables between Finland and Estonia will be brought under criminal investigation. Estonia has ordered additional patrols on the Baltic Sea, while NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has announced an increased support from the alliance.
Finnish authorities have secured a tanker linked to the damage of the Estlink 2 cable. Repairing the cable could take months. Finnish Prime Minister Stubb said during a press conference that it's certain that the Russian vessel caused the damage.
We've got the situation under control, and we have to continue work together vigilantly to make sure that our critical infrastructure is not damaged by outsiders. It's too soon to draw conclusions yet why this happened. We know who did it.
The Estonian Justice Minister has suggested that international maritime law, which covers more established threats like piracy and illegal broadcasting, needs to be updated.
So this dragging the anchor in order to harm the undersea infrastructure is something that is not so specifically covered by the international law.
There have been several incidents where Russian and Chinese-operated ships were suspected of damaging underwater cables. NATO has indicated it is ready to provide assistance to Estonia and Finland.
Spoke with Prime Minister Alexander Stubb about the ongoing Finnish-led investigation into possible sabotage of undersea cables. I expressed my full solidarity and support. NATO will enhance its military presence in the Baltic Sea.
The European Union is now considering new sanctions on Russia's so-called shadow fleet, which is used to circumvent economic sanctions and heavily linked possible acts of sabotage in European waters.
Several countries, including Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan, have suspended a number of flights to Russia following the Wednesday crash of Azerbaijan Airlines flight J28243. Initial reports suggest the crash was caused by external damage from a Russian air defense system. Franciszek Pilis has more.
In this exact moment, 38 people lost their lives and 29 others were injured. Following initial investigations, Azerbaijan Air said the plane crashed due to external technical and physical interference, pointing fingers at the Russian air defense system as the cause of the accident. The Azerbaijan Airlines flight J28243 took off from Baku and was due to arrive in Grozny, Chechnya, less than 2 hours later. Instead, due to landing difficulties like GPS signal jamming, it had to fly across the Caspian Sea to Aktau, Kazakhstan, where it crashed. At first, the Kremlin suggested a collision with a flock of birds caused the plane to crash. After that idea was rejected, Russian officials said the Azeri plane was forced to divert its course due to a Ukrainian attack on Grozny.
Ukrainian combat drones were mounting terrorist attacks on civil infrastructure in the cities of Grozny and Vladikavkaz. Due to this, in the area of the Grozny airport, the Kovyo plan was introduced, meaning all aircraft had to leave the indicated airspace immediately.
According to the Russian official, dense fog also played a role in the incident.
Moreover, near Grozny airport there was a dense fog. Nothing could be seen at an altitude of 500 meters.
Local reports from the crash site claim investigators have already found both black boxes. 4 separate sources, including from inside the government in Baku, also suggested that the plane looked like it was hit by a missile from a Russian Pantsir-S air defense system.
But the reality is, I think when all is said and done, it's highly likely that this was shot down by a Russian manned, potentially a Chechen manned air defense system, probably a Pantsir-1, in the capital of Grozny. And that what you have is a series of errors leading up to that.
So far, all clues seem to point to a Russian air defense system as the cause of the crash. International airlines have taken notice, with companies like Azerbaijan Airlines, Fly Dubai, Israel's El Al, and Kazakh Air all suspending flights to Russia until they make sure it's safe to fly over the country again. Those who were fortunate enough to survive the crash were immediately transported to a nearby hospital. Some of them still couldn't believe what had just happened.
I was conscious when I felt the impact. I was thrown up, down, thrown up again. I was trapped in. I was being thrown back and forth. It all lasted for a few seconds, and then everything went quiet. And silence. Everything was quiet, calm. And I realized that that was it. We had landed.
Still, some were not as fortunate as Mr. Rakimov. Many of the 29 survivors of the crash still need urgent medical care.
The White House has said that the Azerbaijan Airlines jet, which crashed earlier this week in Kazakhstan, killing 38 people on board, could have been shot down by Russian air defense. John Kirby, the White House spokesperson, says early indications suggest it was misidentified as an incoming drone. Several U.S. military sources have said that Russia was responsible for the deadly crash, but declined to say much more. The White House has offered assistance to the investigation as it continues. The Azerbaijan Airlines flight was carrying 67 passengers when it crashed on Wednesday in Kazakhstan. Rashad Nabiev, Azerbaijan's Minister of Digital Development and Transportation, cited experts who say that a weapon hit the plane as it was prepared to touch down. Russia had earlier said that a drone attack was underway in the region, where the plane was headed for landing. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged China to pressure North Korea to stop contributing to the escalation of Russia's aggression in Ukraine. Zelensky highlighted the dangers to North Korean soldiers sent into battle with, quote, minimal protection.
Our soldiers managed to capture them, but they were very seriously wounded and could not be revived. This is one of the manifestations of madness that dictatorships are capable of. The Korean people should not lose their own in battles in Europe. This can be influenced by Korea's neighbors, particularly China, If China is sincere in its statements that the war should not expand, appropriate influence on Pyongyang is needed.
Let's not talk about Russian lies. All Putin does is send rockets, said Czech Foreign Minister Jan Lipavsky on Friday, rejecting Slovakia's proposal to mediate because peace talks between Ukraine and Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced on Thursday that Slovakia is ready to host negotiations following the visit of Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico to Moscow. This information was confirmed by his foreign ministry later on the same day. In response came the comments of Czech Lipavsky saying, "So far Putin has rejected all peace proposals and instead launched more attacks every day." This comes amid Ukrainian-Slovakian tensions over the main reason for Fico's meeting with Putin, who went seeking alternative ways for transporting Russian oil to Slovakia after the halt of the Ukrainian gas transit pipeline deal. Of course, we meant to say Russian gas, not oil in this case. Now, moving on. It's Poland's moment. That's according to Marta Prochwicz, deputy head of the Warsaw office of the European Council on Foreign Relations. In the last episode of TVP World's show On the Record this year, she took a look into the future to see what the upcoming Polish presidency of the European Council may bring.
There are very high expectations that Poland is going to step up because the Germans aren't home. There's instability in France. The UK is no longer there, so it's Poland's moment. And while that's all great and we have gained credibility, politically we have gained credibility in terms of how much we're spending on defense. We have a very good platform to which we can talk to the new US administration. What we need are clever leaders that are able to bring harmony to different strategic positions. We don't need one leader that shows the direction in the exact way that Poland wants to see this develop.
And you can catch the latest episode of On the Record with Adam Yasser and his guests on TVP World's YouTube channel. Now we're moving on to our next story. Maja Sandu, the president of Moldova, has wished Poland a successful EU Council presidency, adding that Poland and Moldova will be working together on key milestones for her country. Poland assumes the rotating 6-month presidency of the Council on the 1st of January.
Very good call with Prime Minister Donald Tusk about Moldova's progress on our EU accession path. I wished Poland a successful EU Council presidency as we work together on key milestones for Moldova, including joining Single Euro Payments Area, implementing Rome like at home, and opening negotiating clusters.
Now, it has been reported that US President-elect Donald Trump has asked the US Supreme Court to pause enforcement of a law that would ban TikTok in the country. During a recent rally, Trump spoke about TikTok's role in his record-breaking youth vote and joked about keeping the platform around.
It was amazing. So we got the highest vote ever for a Republican candidate. We won by 36 points with young people. That never happens. A Republican loses by 36 or 40. So I'm going to have to start thinking about TikTok. I think we're going to have to start thinking. Because, you know, we did go on TikTok and we had a great response with billions of views, billions and billions of views. They brought me a chart and it was a record and it was so beautiful to see. And as I looked at it, I said, maybe we got to keep this sucker around a little while, you know.
Kilauea, one of the world's most active volcanoes, has erupted on Hawaii's Big Island, and lava flows continue. We have live footage of the volcano spewing molten rock as high as 80 meters. The initial eruption occurred on Monday, and though there have been several pauses, authorities expect further eruptions to follow. This marks Kilauea's 6th eruption since 2022, with most lasting from 1 week to over a year. The ongoing volcanic activity has drawn visitors to the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, but authorities urge caution. And with this, we conclude this news bulletin. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.